Hi, my name is Nafiah. Today I'm going to tell you a story about how the night of March 17, 2021 changed my life for the better. Currently, I attend Hofstra University and I'm pre-med. I was studying anatomy and physiology. Back then, I was going into my year and a half to second year of being a pharmacy tech at CVS. I ended up staying a little late. My mom usually picks me up from work, so she was waiting for me outside. I drove home, and my mom said she had to use the bathroom, so she was going to go inside. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I said I was going to lock the car and grab my stuff. So I grabbed my stuff from the back. So I'm closing the door, and in my peripheral vision, I see a man standing there like this, arms crossed, creeped out. Just something about him made me feel like death was like right in front of me or something. That's like the most accurate description of what I can explain it to be, because there's no other way I can explain it. And as I'm walking down my driveway, I hear footsteps. I just felt he was really close. So I turned. I was angled and he was literally 1 foot away from me. Out of nowhere, he goes, I was like, what the F just happened? Okay. Because he like ran away and I was like, okay. I turn around. It's been 5 seconds. All of a sudden, my face starts burning. When he threw the acid, I screamed, which is what caused the acid to go down my throat. My esophagus got burnt. I have a scar in my esophagus. Thank God the ambulance got there when they did, though, because by the time I was in the bathtub and it had only been not even 5 minutes, I told my mom that I was having trouble breathing. If they did not get there with oxygen, I would have died. The right thing to do, you get like acid burn, is you're really supposed to put like saline, which basically it's, or like sterile water, distilled water, something like that. That's like basically equivalent to your body's pH level. This burn was here because it was sitting and sitting and sitting, and the acid ate. Nobody saw this burn and nobody saw this burn until I got into the ER. So the other paramedic couldn't even get an IV in because he was trying to start a morphine drip. So he couldn't get an IV in. So then he was like, you know what, forget that. He was like, I'm sorry, this is gonna burn. I can't get the morphine in. But if I don't do this and I try to fuss with your vein, your face is just gonna burn more. So I'm gonna have to do this. So he poured the saline on me, like on my face, continuously a couple times. And it was just, it hurt so bad. It was like I was fainting and like I was blacking out. There were the burn doctors who were fighting to intubate me because they know that like if my esophagus got burned, it could close up my airway, which is what was happening. But the trauma doctor said if my esophagus got burnt, it would be worse if you put a plastic tube down. So then it was like, what do I do? Because they were giving me the option. And then my mother, who's an NP, comes in the room crying hysterically. And I'm just like, I can't do this. Like, I don't know what to do. On top of all of that, my contact was stuck to my eye. And the eye doctor literally had to take a tweezer, which they call a forceps, pick out my contact before they could wash off the acid. And then when he got my contact out, I realized that the light in the right hand side of my eye looked yellow and the ceiling lights on the left hand side looked white. Right away, I'm like, how bad is it? He was like, could you feel it? And I was like, yeah. He was like, because he was in my eye. He's like, could you feel this? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, okay, then it's not as bad as we thought it would be. And I was like, okay, so how bad is it though? And then he said second to third degree. So I was in the hospital for about 3 weeks. I was allowed to shower, but it was like really weird for me because my face felt so dry all the time and hard. It was like, and then at the same time, they wanted me to scrub the burnt area out to get the dead skin out. I would say mentally, I was very confused. Back home, we know that like these kinds of things only happen when like you reject a man. So we were just like thinking this could either be an ex-boyfriend of mine or like maybe a friend of mine that was jealous. So then when it comes down to like friends, who do I call, right? It's like, who do I confide in? That was my biggest thing. While I was in the hospital, I got really close to my dad. Like, we would spend nights walking around when I couldn't sleep. Watching Blacklist with my dad became our thing, and it became a really good coping mechanism to avoid thinking about my problems. Like I said, we love to avoid. But then I ended up having a therapist that wanted me to, do the complete opposite, face your fears. I also think that whoever did this to me wanted me to live in fear. So I refused to let them get the W because that's what they want. I'm not going to give it to you. The first thing I did, I kid you not, they wanted me to go through the front door. And the first time I saw it, I just cried. And then my dad was like, no, 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 no. We're not going to cry. We fight. We're fighters. I also lost a lot of the insulation and the fatty tissue that filters out the cold. The scarring process was terrible. And I came across a doctor, a facial cosmetic surgeon. He actually ended up giving me a lot of advice and a lot of encouragement and told me about like this thing called tissue expanded, which is when they put an implant in your body. That's beneficial because that's where they get the skin from in order to graft it on my face, as opposed to taking it from all over my body. The scarring happened so quickly that like my nose and the top lip attached to each other. And that's why I had to have surgery around my mouth to remove the connection, because they were afraid my gum was going to go into sepsis. I have to say a major thing for me was the supporters, like the GoFundMe. Like, I met people through GoFundMe. I like read a lot of encouraging things that people said to me. I prayed a lot. Like, even when this happened the night of, I was literally reading something for protection. My spirituality and my connection with God is so strong. It's not easy, but I rather deal with living like this because there's a lot of people that don't have the opportunity and have to stay scarred and in so much pain. Some people back home like don't even have the education to, take their kids to the hospital, or, some people don't make it. Like, I used to sit here, I was going through a lot of grief this year, and I used to sit here and feel sorry for myself, and I'd be like, why do I have to go through this? Da, 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 da. Then I got tired of being angry and I stopped complaining, and I just started to look at the positive. Like, I woke up today, thank you. Like, I can see with one eye. I could have been like fully blind, like I can talk. We complain so much more than we're grateful. Like, there was a time I caught myself complaining about something. I don't remember what it was. And then I humbled myself. I was like, Nafiah, stop complaining. Like, there was a point in time where you couldn't even eat. Everybody asks me how I go through it. And sometimes I look at myself in the mirror, like, even now, I look at myself in the mirror and I don't even know, I don't even sometimes believe that this is what it looks like. And I'm actually living through this. Like, I don't know how I do it. But I really hope that I can take my story with me and like help motivate other people and inspire other people. The reason I wanted to share it with you is to keep it going, because I think that it's very important for people to know the severity of what these people did, yes, but it's not just about me. It's about finding them to make sure they don't do it to other people. My therapist actually asked me that question. She asked me, she's like, what if these people are never found? My parents and I were even saying, like, I'll be able to go out when they get caught. Like, it was literally, I was living my life based on when these people get caught, I'm going to do this. Like, that's crazy. No. So back to what I was saying about not losing, I decided to start, walking around the block, or like walking around the neighborhood. For anyone who has been through anything traumatic whatsoever, my piece of advice is to love yourself regardless, no matter what. You have to love yourself unconditionally. You're not going to be able to love other people if you don't know how to love yourself first. That life that I had was no longer there because I was constantly reminiscing on it. Like, I would sit there and be like, oh, I used to do this, I used to do that. And instead, I started just focusing on what I'm going to do going forward and looking forward instead of looking at the past. because I feel like I could be much more than just a doctor. I could like do so many different things. My best friend sent me information about this girl that got attacked on the subway of recent. I think it was last week Friday, and it was in the news. And she was 21 years old, just like me, a healthcare worker, just like me, coming home from the hospital. That kind of made me feel like this is why I survived. Like that's what my purpose is, to share my story and to help other people and to show them that like life isn't over. Like one thing I really want to do is I really, really hope to get in touch with that girl. Because wouldn't it be amazing if I walk in the room and she sees me and I can just be like, look at me, so she doesn't feel bad? Like that would be the most heartfelt thing I could ever do for somebody. I looked up the purpose of why people do this and the psychosis of it. They want you to have scars for the rest of your life so that you remember. So like even though I might not have this scar that's light, or I might not be able to, see the scars, I still have scars here on my shoulder. I have scars on my thighs that will tie into memories of detrimental like pain and horror for me and trauma for the rest of my life. And that's what they want. You could either smile because it's a good day or complain and make it a bad day. And it's true. You could either wake up in the morning and be happy that you're alive, or you could wake up in the morning and be miserable because you have to go to work, or be grateful and say, I woke up, I have a job, thank you, God. Like there's a different perspective. And I guess I just had to shift my perspective, which also goes back into what I just said, loving yourself. I just wanted to say thank you for all of you guys that took the time to listen to me today. And I hope that something that I said you guys can take home with you and implement in your daily lives, hopefully. My purpose was just to, motivate you somehow. So I hope that I have accomplished that. And if you want to, you guys can follow me on social media. It will be below. And contact me further for any other, inquiries, questions, concerns, whatever.